Right. Barack Obama opened up a new front in the battle for civil rights, right? The 60s, 70s era civil rights was for voting rights, and then the backlash was Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump was the backlash to putting a black man into the White House, right? And I think the easiest way to understand this is through the logic of drained pool politics, where in America, if European Americans are forced to share a public service like a pool with our black brothers and sisters, they would rather fill the pool with concrete and let nobody have it rather than integrate it. And so Donald Trump is the concrete that filled the White House. They no longer want a kind of political system that will yield a black president, right? And so Trumpism is a black backlash to the first black president. That was Trump's major selling point on his presidential resume, was that he was angry at the first black president and he was antagonistic in public, and he channeled all of that anger into the presidency. But what he's doing is tearing down America, because in America we think of racism as about hatred, but it's actually about hierarchy, right? All of those guys in hoods, their main focus was preventing black people from voting, from participating in the political process. So when you look at all of the violence that's been perpetrated in the name of keeping black people out of the political process, to have a black man as president, which is, to conservatives, the president symbolizes a near deity figure. Look at how they worship their people. They worshipped Reagan, they worshipped Trump, so to have to look up at a black president for 8 years was actually traumatic for them. It sparked a traumatic backlash, right? And so, racism, just like narcissism, is never actually about the object of the racism. It's always about the racists themselves. And it's upended their idea of the racial hierarchy, and they're taking their ball and they're going home. But yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all about racism, and it's all about the racial hierarchy, like James Baldwin says about the N-word. Like, why do European Americans need it? And the answer is because they need somebody to look down upon. If you can convince poor white people to see things through a cultural lens instead of an economic lens, and then convince them that, of the racial hierarchy, then they're not going to have the class war, and they're not going to see the economic hierarchy, because they're aligning themselves with cultural forces. And there you have the reason why racism is such a strong force in American life. And yeah, I mean, the fight for civil rights isn't like this kind of long, inevitable walk up a mountain. It's a war. It's a football game. It's gaining ground and protecting that ground, or gaining ground and losing that ground. And so I think a lot of times people on the left think that because they feel they have the moral high ground, that these are kind of entitlements, and that there will be this kind of slow roll to a better union. And the reality is it's a fight. It's something that has to be kind of looked at, that the status quo and the hierarchy and imperialism will fight back, will attempt to retake the ground that we have taken, right? And so anytime there's leaps forward, there will be a pushback, and that's what we're living through right now.